and we'll go ahead and get started. Gentlemen, please take it away.
Great. Yeah. So welcome everybody. Excited to talk to you guys about this, and we have certainly a lot to share, but we definitely want this to be interactive. So, if anything comes up for you guys, or if you want to make a comment, or something about your business that you have questions about, please feel free to engage with us, on your particular slides if it pertains to what you want to speak with us about. I did want to just confirm with others. I don't hear an echo on my end. It sounds fine. But I did see Jamal's note in the chat saying that there's a heavy echo. So just wanted to see if that's an issue for anybody else. Good. Cool. Yeah, Charles, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm Marcus Hoy. I'm the founder of Sustainably. I brought on my colleague Kay about 6 months after I had started the company to really help grow and scale the business and increase our impact. And he actually helped me to develop our app that you guys can download from the App Store for free. And it serves as a backdrop for a lot of the consulting services that we provide. But Kay, I'll pass it over to you if you want to say a couple words, and then we can get started on the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marcus. And thank you so much, Charles, for having us on. We're so honored and excited to be working with SBDC in so many different lights, and so happy to be here and really share a lot of what we've learned and hopefully help everybody here in the audience learn how to make their own impact in the best ways for them. And it is seem tough nowadays with all the things that myself and Marcus do with Sustainably and all the things we do outside of Sustainably. But we always want to make the time to focus and really connect with other businesses in our local community and really get to know how we can really, really empower each other. So recognizing that, the webinar, of course, is growing your business, whatever it is, sustainably and profitably. We always want to grow, and especially in our world today, a lot of us have realized that, well, sustainability, of course, is a very important thing, whether it's environmental, social, on a governance level, whatever that is. And so we're going to tackle a lot of the big picture conversation today, as well as some of the details and some examples of really how to do this. So some of you may remember from the flyer, we kind of are going to have this webinar in 3 acts. The first one is really kind of launching off and really talking about the story of any business, really, and ours, and the challenges that anybody faces in running a business, and really how to be green while also being in the black, right? Being profitable while we're looking to increase, sustain, and evolve our sustainable initiatives. From there, we'll be transitioning into diving into a very interactive exercise where we'll actually be looking to learn from some of your businesses that you run, asking questions, getting feedback about maybe what you've tried already in terms of sustainable initiatives, and really perhaps even sharing some of our recommendations, what we've done with Sustainably, things that we found successful, a few case studies, things like that. And from there, really looking to see what the next steps are and really learn from you guys to see what's tangible, how we can help, and really how we can help each other grow as businesses here in the DC metro area. So recognizing that, let's go ahead and transition to this slide here. And this is a question that's very simple. And for us, we found that with all the nuances and intricacies of what we're up to in our world of sustainability, sometimes simple is best. And here's a question that's simply, how are you as an individual, as a leader, an executive, whatever your role is? Maybe you're just a new employee to a company that you really love and you want to see how you can make an impact. But how are you individually and your business, your organization growing? And what does growth mean to you? A lot of people join meetings to talk about what the next business plan is for a division, or what you have to do to measure the success of, the 10 people that you onboarded a quarter ago, or maybe doing this initiative that is, maybe not the most sustainable in terms of supply chain, right? And how you're looking to grow that in a way that's healthy for the organization financially, but as well as positively impactful for the community and the world at large, right? So if anybody has any thoughts here and wants to chime in the chat about how you and your business are growing, feel free, and we'll kind of touch on those as we go along in the presentation. Recognizing that, this is our motto and our kind of purpose statement for how Marcus and myself and our team see our organization, how we grow. Our purpose here is simply awakening people to their power of evolving a sustainable consciousness. And that means a lot to us. And it's very lofty every time I personally say, because it brings me to focus in on a few things. The first step of this and what this means to us is the awakening process, realizing that, wait a minute, we have a huge impact as everyday people and people that especially lead and manage organizations where we can really make a change, whether it's for our neighbors down the street working with people in a consumer basis, whether it's working with an organization or a nonprofit or a house of worship that is really looking to do better, right, for their community and manage their bottom lines, increase that, and really grow in that type of way too. For us, power simply means the ability to make that impact, and evolution of that sustainable consciousness, simply put, for us means cultivating that intentionality of realizing that every time we wake up, go to our offices, or at this point recently in the world, go to our home offices, open up our computers, every email we send, every decision we make, every product we buy, every partnership we have makes an immediate impact in terms of the direction of where we're going, as well as the long-term impact of where that direction leads us. So the question for us is, where are we going? Or in fact, where are we growing as an organization? And for us, it simply means increasing the intentionality of our behavior and shifting it to something that truly is collectively impactful in a positive way for our businesses and for our world at large. So we'd love to also hear any thoughts you guys have on our purpose statement at any point as well. So recognizing that and to expand upon that, we found that this kind of three-phase process is how individuals and organizations and businesses go about their day and go about their larger strategy, and especially so in terms of sustainable initiatives while being profitable and growing financially. Typically, people awaken to the idea that their model, their products and or services have XYZ benefit, right, for their clientele, whatever that looks like. And typically people will make choices, right, to either change products, increase X type of marketing to go to market better, whatever those choices are, of course, they deliver upon a specific goal, right? And so when we look at this in the lens of sustainability, as well as being a profitable business, the easiest way to think about it is, what are we awakening to? Are we awakening to a world where simply, the capitalistic structures which we live in is that it, right? Or is there more to the story here where we can actually change the systems we live in by changing the ways we interact with ourselves and our businesses, and are able to make clear choices, right? With the diligent research, with the market feedback, with our team members, whether it's just 2 people or 200 people, where everybody's on the same page about really making a shift, right? And that shift we're talking about is when you're in those boardroom conversations, or in a conversation with a potential customer, or a customer maybe you're trying to upsell to other products and services. Are you asking questions that perhaps might have answers around, well, this might be an initiative that really touches on how our community can manage our resources better, or how our business can really actually lower costs, right, from adopting certain things within our own team and choosing different suppliers for the products we make, or perhaps organizing our services in a way that actually a percentage of them go back to an organization that offsets carbon, right? Sometimes these choices are actually very simple things that just simply need to be remembered, right? And to have those conversations with our internal teams, with the customers we have, and the greater partners we have across the city here and across the world. And it's not easy sometimes, right? We've recognized that the road ahead, as we kind of call it, the constant path we're on, we constantly come up against challenges, right? What we found for ourselves is that there's always going to be knowledge gaps. And a lot of the folks we've talked to, individuals or businesses, when we ask them, have you thought about being more sustainable, right? They typically tell us, well, absolutely. I just don't know how. And that's one of the most common things we hear. So from that, we've learned that, well, there's really no go-to blueprint of solving exactly everything for exactly every situation, which is why we found that it takes one step at a time and having an evolving approach to really how we see a specific business, and of course, the specific individuals that lead that business, that allow that business to operate day in and day out. And every situation is different, which is why a consultative approach to your own business and an open, form feedback type of method with your own teams, with the research you do, with the customers you have, whatever they are or whoever they are, is so valuable to help with that knowledge gap and to make it so that there's more of a confidence in going forward with adopting whatever those initiatives are. And so that leads to the second challenge here, where if you're a business that, let's say, is a coffee shop, or a business that actually supplies coffee beans to that coffee shop, there's going to be different initiatives that you have, right, in terms of addressing sustainability while actually growing. If you're that coffee shop that is supplying the beans, well, the question is, where are you, farming those beans, right? Who are you hiring to actually manage those things? How are they being delivered and transported, right? What's the packaging to get there, right? The thinking about that is totally different from if you're the coffee shop, right? If you're a coffee shop, well, it's like, well, what containers are we using, right? Are we talking about our sustainability measures and impacts right in front of that point of sale process when you're actually engaging customers? Do you have programs, right, that actually offset carbon directly every time somebody purchases from your coffee shop, right? So there's different ways of thinking about sustainability, of course. There's not one place where everything will be perfectly integrated, right? It all depends on your type of business. And this is common sense to a lot of us, right? But the key here and the real solution to this is really doing a deep dive on thinking about, well, what type of business are you? And where are you looking to grow with your greater just, objective business plan? And thinking about the options of being more sustainable in a way that actually improve your go-to-market, actually improve your operations, make them more efficient and streamlined, and improve your brand's presence, right? It turns out in our experience, every person we've talked to and business leaders, that when you actually begin this conversation, the inaccessibility of sustainability actually becomes very accessible and in fact quite fun and quite impactful, because what we've come to find is that there's a common reward, as we call it, where taking the time away, not away, but setting the time in your days, in your plans, in your day-to-day operations to talk about how we can be more sustainable every time, in our experience, leads to change that delivers on more of being in the black, more of making the money that you need to grow your business, more people wanting to join your team because you're a more sustainable company or you're looking to grow in that direction. There's tons of common reward that we found where a lot of the initiatives that we frankly must adopt as a world and as businesses leading the charge here in the sector of life, that the more integration there is in our decision-making and the impact we want to make, there's actually more value for ourselves financially and our organizations and for our greater communities. And recognizing that, I wanted to take it high level here and kind of share a lot of the goals that some of us may be familiar with, right? These are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, and they range from anywhere from affordable and clean energy to reduced inequalities, right? Consumption to our water, right? There's tons of ways we can actually tackle the pressing issues we have. And what we found is that the first step to really figuring out, wow, there's 17 things that I could really look at and I want to make an impact. I want my business to be that type of business that leads the world, to be like the Patagonias, to be like the Teslas, right? Is taking a quick look or a long look at the nature of your business and getting back into that strategy, into that vision, right? And seeing if, in fact, one or more of these goals actually are very easy because they're very close to the business model you already have. So we'll actually dive into more of what we specifically mean by that soon here. And so this is where we get into our exercise, getting into Act 2 of this webinar, which will be a good while as we engage with a lot of you on the call here. These are the big three questions we'd like to kind of hone in and focus on what we call the evolving journey, that targeted exploration. So the first piece is understanding, where are you at right now? And it doesn't have to be complicated. Literally, what is your gut first reaction? Where are you at right now as a person? And more specifically, where are you in your business at right now, presently? What are your immediate goals? What's pressing for you? What are the conflicts and challenges you have? Or perhaps as well, what are the goals? Maybe what are some new goals for the quarter we just launched into, right? For the summer, perhaps going into the fall. What are the goals that you have? And perhaps even deeper, maybe you've already thought about some sustainable initiatives, right? If you're on this webinar, about where you want to go, right? And that's the second question. With the concerns, challenges, conflicts you have as a business, or solutions you're looking to implement, where is that going to take you? Where does that road go, right? And are there any openings to evolve that, to change that? Or are there questions you have where you're unsure about really where that trajectory is going? Maybe you have an idea of a certain, sustainable development goal you want to tackle, but you're not sure how. Maybe that's a stopgap for you. If so, please put that in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and expand upon that. And the final question here to target our conversation and move forward as a greater audience and community here is, where are we together? If you guys remember, I'll go back a little bit, that 17th SDG is actually partnerships. And a big part of what we found at Sustainable You is that partnerships make or break a lot of the work we're trying to do in terms of sustainable initiatives. So this question really allows us to hone in on, well, who do I need to work with? What companies, partners, suppliers, whatever it is, do I need to work with to ensure that my business is on a trajectory where I will be successful and I can make an impact in a benevolent, positive way for our environment, for the people I serve in my community, for my greater governance, right, that we have as a community, as a world. So recognizing that, Marcus, you want to take it from here and talk a little bit more about how we've kind of thought about it, things that we found in our experience and successes we've had as an organization working with individuals and businesses here in this lens.
Yeah, on a high level, I think one of the most essential things we can all do when we're thinking of our business and how we can have a sustainable impact. I think it's very important not to get too bogged down in trying to do everything and trying to do all 17, UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think specific businesses are definitely more geared towards individual categories. And in many cases, it's several categories, but really looking through those, thinking about your own business, thinking about which ones you can have the greatest impact in, or just on a personal level, what's going to excite you in the morning, what's going to get you up, even if it's not directly related to your business, it can be this secondary thing that your business is helping to support. And so I think it's really important to focus on really everything that you can do, and then narrow it down to the things that you can have the greatest impact in, and then try to hone in on those individual things and organize your business around those. And I think it's very important to, when you're a business leader, you should be leading from the front, in that it's not all about what you care the most about. It's really about what all of your employees care the most about. So it's really good to have transparency and to get good feedback from your own internal employees about their own passions and about what kind of impact they're looking to have, and then being able to organize your business in a way to help address those different kinds of things. So I think, generally speaking, every business can go through the process of several different categories, whether it's energy sources. And Kay, if you want to switch back to the other slide here. So I think this is a general thing, but it's not that every company needs to do every one of these things. But I think it is very important to focus in on some of the bigger things first. Do you have offices? Are you working from home? Is it just a home office? Or do you have manufacturing facilities? And really identifying, what is your greatest impact negatively on the environment? What kind of resources are going into helping your business to operate in the way that it does? and then really creating a list top to bottom on your highest energy usages and your highest resource usages and water consumption, and identifying where you can focus and hone in on first to then start to tackle these things one at a time. Because I think it can be overwhelming when you think of all the different things that you could do and all the different, negative things that maybe your business is in terms of a resource standpoint. But the reality is, if you just take a step back, focus one on a time, and create some organization around it, you can break it down into manageable bite-sized pieces that you can have an impact on, and you can tackle those one at a time. And then before you know it, you've changed all of these different things for the better. And I think, in line with what this whole presentation is about, and as you all know, as business owners, it's not just about being the most sustainable business. We do have to make money. We do have to operate sustainably financially too, in order to really ever have an impact. If you fail, then you're never going to have the positive impact that you want. So it is important to put your the economic lens on through sustainability, and it's and that's what kind of brings me into Washington, D.C. specifically. I think most of you are probably D.C. business owners like we are. And we're actually very fortunate when it comes to this particular category of sustainability, because, and many of you have probably heard of this before, but the Sustainable DC plan. So we happen to live in a city that does genuinely care about being more sustainable and trying to set a good example for the rest of the cities across the country, and has the luxury to do so because DC is doing very well economically, and there are a lot of businesses here, and there's a lot of economic activity, and they have a lot of tax revenue. So they do have the the luxury to really kind of create incentive programs and help businesses to accommodate more sustainable practices. One of those is at the very top on this slide is energy. And I'm not sure how many folks know much about solar specifically in DC, but there's a commitment by the city as part of the Sustainable DC plan to go 100% renewable by the year 2032. And a subset of that energy is required to be generated by solar electricity here in the district. And they've actually created a fine structure to help facilitate really an incentive program that makes it very, very great to go solar. And I see Yvonne says she does bioenergy, and that's great too. There's all kinds of different renewable energy sources. And I think on a macro scale, it's very important for us to look and see what the earth gives us at the locations that we're operating, and be able to take advantage of those natural abundant resources that we have as much as possible. And so we certainly need to use wind, and we need to use hydroelectric where it makes sense. We need to use geothermal where it makes sense. Certainly biofuels are part of the transition and part of the mix, especially if those fuels initially are managed in a sustainable way, and the way that we're growing those. So unique to DC is this solar incentive where if you're a business, you actually can get solar completely for free. A lot of folks think that solar is something that's expensive and it's going to take over a decade for it to pay for itself. And that, that may be true in some states and in many states. It's not true in DC. DC, you literally can get solar for free installed onto your buildings, and all of the energy that's generated by those systems is given to you at 0 cents per kilowatt hour. And so that's an option for every business owner that owns a building or owns a property. And in fact, that's even an option for business owners that work from home. If you own your home, that's also an option because the incentives are strong enough. The other thing is, and from a business standpoint and economic standpoint, this typically makes the most sense. Investing and actually owning the solar asset itself is a really, really strong play in DC because of this what's called solar renewable energy certificate incentive that is created as a product of the policy that's been put in place in DC. So it is actually something that allows you to make income while simultaneously eliminating your electricity costs. And that income exceeds what it costs to finance your system on a monthly basis. So you literally are making money, you're getting paid more money than it's costing you to own the system. And then as a business owner, there's other innovative tax benefits to solar. There's the federal investment tax credit, which is significant. And then in addition to that, as a business owner, you can actually depreciate the asset and you can take what's called modified accelerated cost reduction system. So it's a form of accelerated depreciation on the whole value of the solar. So if you invest in that, you get all these different tax breaks and you get this new income source and you've eliminated your solar costs. So it's a really great thing. It's something everybody should be looking into in DC, whether it's for your own home, whether it's providing that information to your employees who may have homes in DC. I think that that's another good thing that we can do as business owners is get the right information to our colleagues, to the folks that work with us, and help them to achieve their goals and help them to save some money, help them to at least know about the low-hanging fruit. I think that's the best thing that we can do is focus on what's really easy. Where does sustainability meet with saving money? And where can we help our bottom lines immediately and simultaneously help the environment? Because those are the no-brainers. Those are the things everybody should be doing as quickly as possible. And then if everybody adopts those things, it progresses the industry at large further, and there's more investment into those things, which then there's a feedback loop, which makes it even more profitable for other folks to be able to do other things that maybe weren't profitable before there was so much investment in these industries. For folks who maybe don't own properties and are leasing or renting, there are other alternatives. These aren't as low-hanging fruit because you're not going to save a ton of money in the process, but it's really simple and it doesn't actually cost you more money if you know how to navigate it and you go about it in the right process. But there are third-party suppliers where you don't need to own the property to be able to switch to these kind of renewable resources, at least from an accounting standpoint. And we can certainly advise folks on the best ones and the ones that we would recommend and how to actually navigate that process, all the way to energy efficiency improvements, making sure that our buildings are not wasting a lot of energy, making sure that ideally, if we're manufacturing things, what is the byproduct? Can that byproduct be the beginning fuel to a new product for somebody else? And can we facilitate the partnership such that the waste on the end of one process is the beginning to a new process, and create more of a circular economy? Because ultimately that's, it'd be great if like the government could create the circular economy, but just historically speaking, it just hasn't worked out that way. And it's really going to be private businesses that drive that, and engineer their business models and engineer their processes to be able to create that system that is feasible in many respects. I think some other ideas is starting a group within your own organization. So a sustainability group or a task force that is dedicated specifically to tackling these things and looking at your business through a sustainability lens. And then obviously there's all these different opportunities with, carbon offsets. And there's there's a whole list of different things you can do organizationally to minimize air travel, encourage more virtual meetings, which there's going to be a lot less transportation emissions, encourage employees to get involved with different local programs. For example, in this slide here, we do have an image of our organization. These are three of our different team members, Mimi and Will and Nicholas here. what we've done is we've partnered with an organization here in DC that's dedicated to cleaning up the Anacostia River way. And they ask for volunteers to actually take samples of the water and send them back to the lab to measure, to see, what's going on, what's in the water, how can they address, the pollutants that have found themselves there, and keep the public aware of, whether it is safe to actually swim in that water at particular times. And it, just based on the infrastructure of our city, it turns out that usually when it rains very hard for the next day or two after, oftentimes the rivers are very polluted because of the sewage has to basically get diverted into the Anacostia River because the water treatment facility can't keep up with that amount of storm water plus the sewage system. So, and there's, a big infrastructure project in DC that certainly is going to address the bulk of the issues that's being, that is, being caused by this. And so finding an organization, there's tons of them in DC, finding your niche, the thing that you want to help out with is, I think, really key. And creating a transparent feedback loop with your employees to figure out what they want to support and help them to facilitate that. Because ultimately, to have a sustainable, profitable business, the vast majority of businesses are really, they are their employees and not much else. It's really about retaining and attracting good talent. That's, passionate people that put in hard work every day and help grow the business. And, paying somebody a good salary and benefits is certainly one way to attract, but people need more than that. And especially with the workforce getting younger and younger, and frankly, climate change getting more and more center stage, and frankly, looming at every year that goes by, we're getting closer to these issues, really kind of rearing their heads. It's something that we as business leaders need to think about, that our employees do want to engage in this and do want to feel like they have a true impact and that they're making a difference in the world. And many people are really passionate about doing their part for the environmental crisis. And so if we as businesses can offer a space for those ideas to grow and to foster the camaraderie around these, shared passions, I think it's very important. And one simple idea for that is, if I think, again, the sustainability group within the organization is great, but something more specific and something that we've done at Sustainably and some other companies that I've worked with have done as well, is starting either a book club. And so we did a book club on the book Drawdown and just have a discussion. We actually had a podcast that we were discussing that, or just a little bit easier than, reading a whole book every month, especially a lot of people are busy and it's just not as feasible. Just watching a documentary, either having a team viewing of a documentary or everybody watches it over the course of a month. And then you guys get together and discuss that environmental documentary. Maybe it relates directly to the business that you guys are doing and inspires people to want to work harder in their own jobs. But I'll pause there for now, Kay, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And that was a perfect place too, because to further integrate what Marcus just said around the documentary viewing, an idea that we've had for Sustainable You and many other organizations I'm familiar with, and something that everybody listening in right now can implement, is imagine doing or promoting a documentary viewing with your customers and building that relationship, having a customer-centric event where the movie happens to be a documentary about our water, right? Or the trees, or whatever it is, right? And having the space where you can either sell or promote your products, or it's tied into whatever your services are, right? This touches on improving your customer relationships, building your brands, allowing your employees, your team members to really engage deeper into the organization they're part of, while you're also increasing all the value you have with your market. Right? So that's an easy, simplistic way to understand how and really see how integrating sustainability measures or initiatives while growing your business is, in fact, actually pretty easy sometimes. So recognizing that, I think we want to pause and look at all the amazing comments that you guys have been sharing in the chat and touch on some of these. I'm actually going to unshare my screen, and if anybody wants to turn their video on and chime in, please feel free. The first one is, and forgive me so much if I mispronounce your name, but it's Sherry Mane. I don't know if that's correct. Was that correct, Sherry?
It's okay. It happens all the time. My name is Charmaine.
Charmaine, got it. Beautiful. So lovely to have you on, Charmaine. And Charmaine, you're a vegan chef and you own a vegan meal plan service. Amazing. Marcus would have a lot to speak about that. You've been vegan for what, like 5
Almost
years?
6 years, 5.5.
6 years?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And of course, we all know that having a vegan diet makes a huge impact, right? For a lot of the things we're looking for in the world. So your specific question to touch upon this, and this is part of the exercise, guys. This is part of our webinar here today, where we explore some of these specific things in the real world. So for you, your customers can accumulate over 60 containers per month for their meals. It can add up, right? And your question is like, what suggestions do we might have for sustainable packaging? So I actually have a case study here, kind of. One of our good friends and business partners is called Paradigm One. And I used to live in Tacoma, like close to Tacoma Park. It was on the DC side. But our friend John Hansen, who is the principal of Paradigm One, they basically have a circular economy startup where they essentially brought in a kiosk right downtown in Tacoma Park. Some of you may have seen it maybe. But that kiosk actually works with multiple restaurants now in the Tacoma Park area. And they use reusable, sustainable containers. So as an example here, if you ordered food from one of the restaurants, it's called the Tacoma Beverage Company, right? So you'd order, let's say, a sandwich from them, right? And you basically tack on your Paradigm One membership, very easy point of sale process, right? For the restaurant and for Paradigm One. Now that sandwich comes into that reusable container. And of course, to answer your question here, happy to introduce you to this gentleman because in addition to his sustainable container, he also works with various manufacturers and is trying to develop other sustainable packaging for businesses at large. And it would definitely probably help with your meal plan service. But recognizing that the sustainable container, beautiful model, simply goes to the consumer. Consumer eats their sandwich right on a picnic table or at home. They then just take the container back to the restaurant, right? If they're getting some more food and just drop it off there, or they simply put it back into the kiosk. So it's a very easy way to get the consumer engaged here at that restaurant. It's like, oh my gosh, Tacoma Beverage Company is super sustainable. They have this reusable container initiative. Those types of people, right, are going to buy there more, right? And then other people that are like, oh, I kind of want to try that. I want to make an impact. They're going to buy there too, right, and change. And then the model for the restaurant is they don't really have to deal with that because Paradigm One pretty much manages the infrastructure for that. So there's a whole new business, right, for Paradigm One going into the marketplace here to further grow the Tacoma Beverage Company as an example, right? So an amazing, realistic, practical example here that is very recent. This Paradigm One started up, I believe, just last year or so. So we'd love to introduce you to John there, Paradigm One. He definitely have a lot there. And this speaks to partnerships, right? Something we've learned, it's all about meeting people that do all these niches and have their specific things. But meal planning and these services, we see all these companies out. There's probably, gosh, like 1,000 of them at this point where it's like you see those ads like get your meals delivered and all these things. Most of them have terrible packaging, right? And even if it is sustainable, it still comes in like all these things. You have to deal with all of it. It's kind of a mess sometimes, right? And it's hard for packaging to either be fully compostable / biodegradable or packaging to be reusable because the infrastructure isn't there for people to reuse it and circulate it back into the actual community that can manage that waste or whatever happened, right? So it's a big challenge, right? But it looks like there's some change right here in our city. So great question.
I wanted to give an example about sustainability in regards to food justice. So in my company, we have a program as part of our process to use the fruits and vegetables from the CSA, from the farms in the neighborhood. And then we also have a video culinary program where we teach the high school students how to cook plant-based, because that's the new way of, I believe that's going to be the way of the future in regards to food. And then we hire them as chefs. So we're able to support our local farms because we have customers every week. So we buy the food from them. And then we train our students to make sure they know how to cook the way we want. We're also, putting in that idea about being sustainable, what it is to be vegan, what the social benefits are to it. And then when they finish school, they can come and work for me. So we're able to have that circular, sustainable process. And I was picking up containers from my customers, so I will look into that. But even then, I still have 500 containers at the end of the month that I have to figure out what to do with.
Right.
And, and that can be a deterrent, because if there's too many containers in your refrigerator, or you find at the end of the month that you have all these containers, you may not want to continue to do business with me, not because you don't like the service, but you don't like the end product. So the packaging is really becoming an issue.
And that's two things there I want to expand on, Charmaine. It's so beautiful, because that example there, of working with the kids there, right? Improvement, right, for the job market, the social impact there, the dietary impact, all those things. And it just seems so simple when we articulate it, right? It's just, we have to get started. You probably know this, right? You just have to take that first step and be like, wait a minute, we can totally do that. You just got to make the phone calls. You got to get the people together. And then usually it winds up happening exactly how it's supposed to. To the second thing I wanted to share around the packaging, right? It's like that looming, like, oh my gosh, there's so many packages people have. There's 500 packages that I have, at the end of all of it. What do I do with it? And the way we like to think about it in our lens at Sustainable You is that every crisis, right, is an opportunity. And a big thing we've learned too about, trying to be sustainable is that it really tests our acuity as business owners, right? Because just from this conversation, I'm thinking whether it's with John at Paradigm One, yourself together, partnering with him, or maybe another company, another startup, there could be an option here for a whole business to create something where, let's say there's, 10, 15, right, meal planning services in DC, right, like yourself, that want to be sustainable, and there's all these packages, right? What do we do with them? I don't know. There could be a business that comes around, picks all these up, rinses them out, puts it back, right? There you go. And you pay for that. The customers pay for that, maybe like a percentage of it in your meal costs, whatever it is, those financials break down, right? But then there's a whole new business, right? Even better, you can vertically integrate this. You can make that part of your business, right? So there's an easy example there of just a whole new business idea that just came from this collaborative conversation, right? So that's beautiful. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'd love to see something like that in the marketplace here. Maybe you and John can talk about that. Who knows, right?
Good idea. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Advice, free consultancy. We do these webinars. We always want to help as much as we can. And so just moving on to the next few thoughts here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, we got Tremaine, Jose, if I'm pronouncing that right. Awesome that you were at UN. The COP25 in Spain. That's so awesome. Evolved Bioenergy. And then I think we had Linda, and you wanted to talk about community development. And so for you, correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to turn on your video and chime in here to expand upon this, Linda. But your thing was working with smaller nonprofits to identify service gaps and seek grants to improve or expand their services. Is that correct? Could you actually clarify what you mean, like with service gaps and kind of the grants you've been looking into, Linda?
Well, basically, we feel I found that a lot of the smaller nonprofits are trying to integrate or update their services because their community that they're serving are changing, and so they may need to improve or expand their service base. So how do we help them to do that? And then also we want to look at, are they ready to do that expansion? Do they have the management capabilities in place? Do they have the products? Do they have the equipment to do that? Are they ready to go to the next step? So we do a thing called grant readiness. Are you ready to get the next level of funding? The other thing that we also talk about is, should you look at other companies or other organizations that you can collaborate with to expand your service base? So when you were talking about community development, I just wanted to get what were your ideas about that from the viewpoint of sustainability?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, thanks for that, Linda. And what you mentioned is probably, maybe a few others on the webinar today probably share some of the same, thoughts, right? If you're working with nonprofits and things like that, how do you really grow? And it's typically pretty tough, right? With running a nonprofit to kind of manage, financials, right? You have to look at grants, you have to look at private, money coming in. There's a lot of variables to keep nonprofits sustained or work with multiple nonprofits in a partnership level. So in terms of community development, that's kind of two words that are kind of vague, right? They can mean a lot of things. For us, kind of what we meant by that is, to be very authentic here at Sustainable You, we model ourselves as a consultancy, and a lot of our work is consultative, right? We meet with folks, individuals, organizations, et cetera, and we consult. We spend the time to have conversations just like this, ask deep questions to hopefully get deeper answers around what solutions there are to the challenges that any individual or business faces. And what we found in our experience is that one of the easiest, most efficient ways that address, sustainability in a good way, while growing the impacts or, budget, let's say, of an organization, nonprofit, whatever have you, is taking a step back to take a step in. And what I mean by that is looking at the big picture, to your point, right? Looking at the planning, doing grant readiness assessment, whatever it is, and then perhaps realizing that there are very easy, low lifts, low cost ideas where you can really engage people. I actually want to bring up Charmaine's point again about working with those kids, right, who eventually get that working experience, right? So you're impacting, working with the community directly, right? Building a lot more equity there in our local community, and then those kids get to work with her, right? And, making food, or at least have the experience to go off and do something else. Another example that we'll share here. You guys get some insider news. But we actually brought on a new team member just yesterday, actually, and the day before that, I personally was part of this semi-large gathering of folks that have electric bicycles. So bicycles on their own are super sustainable already, of course, but sometimes if people are wanting to travel quicker or commute around, having an electric bike is now becoming more popular than, of course, taking an Uber, right, or driving your car, of course. And so there's about maybe 50, 60 people there, and one of these companies is an electric bicycle startup. And our new team member just yesterday mentioned, wait a minute, why don't we do a type of event where maybe we do like a raffle or something where this company could come into DC, set up like maybe a mini event or festival or something like that, where they get to promote their electric bicycle, right? So their businesses get some value there. And then our customer network, right, of the thousands of customers we've worked with, and then, potential new clients of ours, right? And our team gets to be part of an event where we really engage with people, have conversations about how they transport themselves, right? Do you still own a car, right? Is it gas? Do you take the metro? Do you fly a lot? Have you thought about getting an electric vehicle, or maybe a personal, smaller electric vehicle that's maybe an electric bicycle or a scooter, right? And then from there, maybe there's a raffle system or something like that where they could be further incentivized to purchase, right, from that new electric bicycle startup. So that's one way, recently that just came up that we're thinking about engaging our clientele and our community to really educate about a different mode of transportation. The other thing that I want to touch on here, I think it was actually the next piece, Yvonne actually mentioned working with a local school and having a garden, right? So I love that. It's one of my favorite initiatives. I actually, when I was in school in Northern Virginia, one of my favorite things to do, like after classes or on the weekends, was actually, I started up and maintained a school garden. And now, being a lot older here and out of high school, it's still a great thing to do, right? And that's one way to really think about, okay, well, if our, let's say, nonprofit or business really wants to promote what we do and make an impact, well, maybe we could reach out to a school, right? And maybe buy, some seeds, some planter boxes, or, work with Sustainable You. We have a whole gardening permaculture division to help strategize and actually do the work of building that garden, right? Or even better, right? Similar to Charmaine's point, loop in maybe some of the kids from that school, or of course, the employees at your business to actually do some of that gardening, right? So they get the health benefits of gardening. The school or the church or whatever place gets the benefit of a garden that's getting started and maintained. And there's a lot of promotion for the business or businesses that promote all of that work. So those are kind of some examples that came up. I don't know if does that help at all, kind of touch on how we kind of think of community development, Linda?
Yes, I put a note in the chat, Kay, and I may be calling you to bring you in as I move and start working with the nonprofits. So thank you.
Absolutely, we'd love to help. Yeah.
And I also have one example as well of community development. So we're working with a church in Maryland to convert the entire church, and it's actually it's a large facility that's not just a church; it's also a charter school, as well as a daycare center. So it's all three of those things in one. And so we're building a rather large solar array for that whole facility. And as part of that process, we're actually contributing $40,000 towards building a sort of like gazebo of sort that's going to be on their land next to it. And as part of it, we're going to offer ongoing consulting and workshops centered around sustainability to help teach the kids and the church members as well about things they can do in their own individual lives to live more sustainably. And I think a garden will be part of that project so that, you know, they can all help tend to growing some food, but also learning more directly about solar and water management practices. And I think as part of that, there will also be some rainwater barrels that will be installed. So it's going to be sort of like a sustainable gazebo for learning more about sustainability that's powered by solar. And they'll also use it for other events like musical events and stuff like that. But that's another project we have on the horizon that's in that space.
Yeah, that one's super exciting. And, you know, we love projects. Anytime anybody here in the audience today or anybody you know that would love to just talk about ideas like that, we're always happy to really discuss those things. That's a big part of our passions in our business, what we do. There was one last person who mentioned a lot of things in the chat. I want to touch on that. It was actually Yvonne. I know I mentioned the school garden. Would love to hear your thoughts if you've done that, if you've implemented that in your business. I think you mentioned you're in bio energy, right? If you want to, you know, turn on your video or at least unmute yourself and talk a little bit more about the work you do and maybe some of the challenges or successes you've had with being a sustainable business while being profitable, please.
Yes. Thank you for the
I think the volume's a little bit low. It's hard to hear you, Yvonne.
better.
I think that might be better. Yep.
Project one was done.
I'm sorry, Yvonne. Looks like you're still cutting in and out.
Oh, really?
It's like maybe you have headphones on or something. Maybe you're far away from the computer. Not sure.
I don't.
We can almost hear you. And while you're setting that up, Linda, just to touch on there will be contact information in the last slide of our presentation. But just to make it easy for you, I'll go ahead and put in my email as well as our company Connect email. So you can go ahead and email us anytime you like.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's perfect. Look at that. Excellent. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I was working for Chevron and I had to go to Nigeria to work on a project. While working on the project, there was a school in the area an elementary school in an area where our offices were located. So I had to work with some nonprofit in the US to start a garden. Because the school, I mean, first of all, they had mosquitoes everywhere, water everywhere, stagnating everywhere. So we just work with the local communities and with the support of some of the nonprofit in the US, we started a garden that grew so powerful. The whole community, the parents, everybody ended up being involved. Wow. And the school itself grew within 2 years. The school went from 400 kids to 1,200 students. So
Wow.
people like it. Yeah, people like the project. I said everybody was involved. The parents, children, everybody, and it was just an elementary school. So, but I have another project that I'm working on now in Cameroon this time. The project is creating, producing energy. I have an elementary school with 1,500 kids, and they have a cafeteria. So what we're trying to do now is to put a biodigester. Biodigester is a technology that produces all this biogas. And so we're trying to put a biodigester there to help produce energy that will be used in the kitchen, and then use all the waste from the kitchen and human waste from the kids to produce electricity. So reducing the cost of electricity for the school and gas in the kitchen. So that is the project we're working on now. I mean, I'm very excited about it because I did one in a farm, in a rural area in Cameroon, and now I'm taking it to the school. So
That's beautiful, and it's as profound how a simple garden can become, maybe a complex garden with so many people involved in the growth there.
Yeah. The whole village.
The whole village, right? It literally, what's that say? It takes a whole village, right?
Yes.
And this is the good side of it. It takes a whole village, and it helps the whole village, right? And it's awesome that that work, and maybe yourself are from Cameroon, right? Les jardins sont les meilleurs, right? Gardens are the best. So it's so powerful, like you said, like impact that just putting some seeds in the ground can have, right? For our villages, right? For our greater communities and the people around. So amazing. So I think that was it in the chat so far. So this webinar is going until 1:30. We still have a kind of a third act that kind of recaps a lot of this conversation and goes into some larger takeaways about how we kind of go about this conversation at hand of sustainability and profitability for our businesses. But there's anybody else, maybe one or two more people that would like to chime in, maybe turn on their video, talk a little bit more about what they're doing, thoughts that have come up for them during this webinar already, or anything at all. We'd love to have an open discussion here a little bit at this point.
I'd love to hear from Jose on his project that he just mentioned with all that energy, and specifically the power balls in the rivers. That seems really, really cool and something I'm not as well versed on. So would love to hear about that. I think you're still muted, Jose.
Yeah, I sit on the advisory board of a little company, and we've been doing power balls. We put these power balls in the rivers, and we're creating energy, electricity. The more you put, for example, we put one in there, and we can light up a house along the river in rural America.
Wow.
If we put in like, a bigger one, and we put like 5 or 6 of them in the same river, we can power up a school. We can power up a little town of, I don't know, 500 people. So we're working on that right now here, and we have it, we're working in Africa and then in 2 projects in Asia with that. And we're a little company out of California doing that, and we manufacture everything here.
Very
So
cool.
that's sustainable, and it builds that up. And I'm not the owner. I advise them. I sit on their advisory board. But they're a little company, and they're doing huge things with it. I myself come from green people, because I grew up in the landscaping business with my family. So we built, we planted over thousands of trees, flowers, all that kind of stuff. And my family's still involved in that in Chicago area. But the other thing that I am involved in with a small laboratory in California, and I represent them here, is that we created a fuel additive transition fuel that lowers the emissions on fossil fuels. Last year, we took out 1.25 million tons of CO2 out of the air. In Texas, we own 60% of the market on diesel. Diesel is very dirty, and you put this additive in there, and it took out all this smoke from going up into the air. What we do with that today, they're in 12 different countries. What they do today is that if it's used in there, it takes out all these emissions as we are moving forward to electrical vehicles. we still have all these vehicles on the road. So
Mhm.
something needs to be done to lower the pollution. So we're doing today by lowering the pollution on this, where everybody wants to go to in 2030, we're already there now with those companies that use the product. And the last thing that we're working on right now, the other project, is we have a battery storage. We're storing heat to create electricity. On solar panels give off a lot of heat besides attracting heat to create electricity. We're taking the heat, that thermal energy, storing it in a battery to give free electricity and push out free electricity into the grid. And we're working on that project right now. And again, another small company. It started out in Canada. Now we're we're building them here, or they're building them here, and I have a distributorship for that here in the DC area. So we're working on that because we're trying to do everything sustainable, trying to get as much to do reusable energy and to take pollution out of the air at the same time. So I'm working on those 3 little projects right now. And
Wow.
small, but it's happening.
What are the company names? I'd love to just like kind of look into that a bit more.
Yeah.
You can look at the one for the Powerballs is called Elos, HELIOS, and the other one is BioFriendly. BioFriendly is biofriendly.com. And the third one is NovaCab, NOVACAB, cab. And again, we're out there right now, and we're pushing these things and they're little companies, and they came to me because I do environmental projects. Since I was at the UN for the CUP 25, I'm going to CUP 26. We had a virtual one in between. Everybody in sustainability is there, using the fuel additives in the country of Chile, for example, because we also got them certified by the UN for carbon credits. They received a grant from the UN for $3.5 million for lowering the emissions on their fuel. And countries are eligible for this for the UN, but you got to get certified for your carbon credits. A lot of people are doing this work. Even the city of Washington, D.C. has been working for this project that it's got going for solar, but it needs to contact the UN so it can apply for carbon credits. That way the city can then qualify, and as you lower, as you get your carbon credits and you're lowering carbon, the city can apply then for grants that are coming out of the UN for sustainability, and then do other projects along the way. Most of the stuff that we do is commercial. It's not for local stuff. It's mostly commercial because it's for masses. And though there are startups and they're little, they're growing and they'll grow more and more. So it's very exciting, but you can look into them, and all 3 projects are very exciting with what we're doing with them today. And we're going to the future with these things. And so I love the topic that you guys have here. And we hold virtual conference, or not us, but the folks from CUP 2026 as our road for sustainability. Once a month, they hold a different, just like you guys, they hold a different program on, and it's free, on a webinar on different topics according to the map that you rolled out from the UN. Water one day, air pollution the next, bioenergy, reusable energy, solar, and so on. So each month they do a different program as we move forward for Glasgow. So it's very exciting, and we enjoy it a lot. And I love the work that you guys are doing and what you're teaching, because it's fantastic. And just so you know, I sit on the board here in Washington, D.C. of the local Boy Scouts of America, and we are the original Leave No Trace Behind. I sit on the national board too, but we created Leave No Trace with our kids. And today it's its own national association where we teach people that when they go out into, well, anywhere really, but when they go out and use our parks and use our forests and so on, pick up your trash, don't leave any trace behind, take it home with you, because there's nobody there to pick it up from you. So we've done those projects too, and we get the kids out there to work there. It's really fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Jose, I feel like you should just do like 10 webinars a week, man. I feel like there's so much wisdom we can get from you.
I'm just a little guy, just working here.
Yeah. Oh man, so humble too. But yeah, to the note of I think Sawanda, you mentioned anybody that is comfortable, please put your websites, contact info in the chat. We'd all love to stay connected. It's a big thing with these webinars. We want to really build coalitions and collaboration community, as we do these things, and really get to do proper networking and see how we can help each other. And I know actually, Sawanda, you actually had a note earlier a while back in the chat I think you messaged me directly. I'm not related to the person you mentioned, I think. But if you have anything you'd like to share too, please feel free to unmute or turn your camera on as well.
I was just interested in the program that you mentioned early on for free solar for home-based businesses.
Yes.
Is that applicable to home-based businesses?
Absolutely. Marcus, you want to chime in on that?
For sure. If you're in Washington, D.C. specifically, it is. If you're not in D.C., there's other ways to sort of work out like no upfront cost, which is definitely different than free. But if you're in DC and the home is in DC and you own it and it's part of your business, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Great, because I am in DC, so.
Perfect. Yeah. No, we'd love to. That's one of the biggest things we offer as an organization. We'd love to help you figure out how solar can make sense. So absolutely. Excellent. Well, yeah, we're right on track on time. So let's go ahead now. And if you do have any other thoughts, please put them in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen now and continue with some of our awesome slides. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Looks like we're good to go. Perfect. So yeah, and here we go. So as we kind of had that group discussion and really just recapping what this process looks like for everybody listening in today and anybody that listens to this recording, we want to make it as simple as possible to really have these conversations and implement and cultivate further evolution of what sustainability and profitability can look like for you and your businesses. And in short, it's really just identifying, right? Really being really realistic and practical about what growth means for you, right? Whether it's dealing with a new, meal service, delivery company, and maybe vertically integrating a whole new division where you actually pick up those containers now. Maybe that's your trajectory for growth, right? And thinking about, Jermaine, you're the perfect example, like thinking about your team and even getting, kids that are learning, real life skills, getting job experience and, going back into their communities, adding so much value, right? That's step one, thinking about the value we can provide for our business that also at the same time, with very little extra lift or none at all, make an even larger impact financially and sustainably. And then number two, that kind of happens from really identifying all that stuff and coming up with a strategy is being collaborative, right? And thinking about how that integration happens, working with all the amazing folks on this call today and other folks that we already know that whether they're sustainability experts, or maybe they're just a business that's just getting started, or a business that has $200 million in revenue a year that has really never thought about sustainability, right? It's just really starting the conversations and thinking about, well, is there any collaboration that can happen here that makes sense for our models mutually, but also give us some space, or we create the space where there's sustainable impact that can happen to meet, one or more of those SDGs that we've been talking about. And number three, which for me, with a lot of my coaching experience and the way we kind of relate to our customers and the businesses that we work with, is it doesn't just happen step one and step two, but there must be sustainability for sustainability. There must be traction. There must be further evolution where we're kept accountable to the goals and plans and partnerships that we make and have, that we actually measure our results, right? Jose put some amazing things in the chat with some hard measurements of the impact of carbon offset that we have from, certain products that we put out that are really sustainable. Or if you're a company that's not directly in sustainability, doing some measurements, right, about the carbon you offset if you, let's say, have all your team work from home, right, for a few days a week, right? Or at this point, maybe all the time, unless there's a necessity to meet in person or have an engagement, right? Very simple things that you can measure here and do the calculations for that allow you to build yourself and market yourself as a company that is sustainable, that has the data to back it up. And the final piece there that we always like to touch on is transparency. A lot of the things that we found as well with the status quo of corporations and businesses is that a lot of things kind of happen behind closed doors. Nobody even knows what's going on from one executive to another, from a middle manager to another, from an entry-level employee to the CEO. Something that we take pride in a lot at Sustainable You is that if you want to ask me and Marcus about anything about which direction our company's going or what we're up to every day, we're fully happy to have that conversation 100%. And it's the same when we're talking about our plans and goals to evolve at our own company, right? At our initiatives, at our projects, at our events. Because guess what? When you're transparent, when you open the conversation and keep that door open, right? Metaphorically and literally, there's more people that can contribute to that conversation, right? Just to pull up that example again from yesterday, we literally onboarded a new team member just yesterday, and right away after their first team meeting, they were like, wait a minute, I have an idea, guys, let's do this. And I was thinking about something like that. I was like, oh, amazing, right? The more the merrier when we're transparent with our teams, with our partners, with potential clients about who we are as individuals, what our business is, truly is, where we're growing, right, as an organization, because the more we are authentic, transparent, and accountable to our goals and strategies and initiatives, the more that we find success, tangibly and intangibly. So I'm just going to do a quick check here for the chat. Looks like there's a few things here. Awesome, Alicia. The new executive order on sustainability, awesome, yeah. So here's where we kind of talk a little bit more about us. You guys probably have a good sense of who we are as an organization. I'll kind of go high level here and let Marcus touch on some details about us. But essentially, guys, we're a consultancy that's really more of a community platform, right? Marcus mentioned earlier that we have a mobile app that we developed, which for us, we're evolving to be the platform that you can always go to. Just like nowadays, everybody uses your Facebook or Instagram, or we've also been compared to the Noom app, if you're familiar, kind of an all access guide to be your Sherpa to all things sustainable, where everybody can achieve that common reward. Whether you're an individual homeowner, to your point, Sawande, who gets solar for free and benefits that way, or you're an organization, right, that works with us to set up a whole garden, also get solar, get the folks inside the coaching to be more sustainable. We do it all almost, and we were always evolving to figure out what the best things we can do are that are efficient, that make us money, make the clientele we're working with money, and make truly an impact. And for us, our model has been refined to kind of these three prongs where we're vetting and curating products and services and partnerships to work with the right solar companies, to work with the right landscaping or design companies to do the right type of edible forest designs for a homeowner, right? Or for a church at large. And we also do the consulting, of course, and the coaching, right? We have a whole offering that we call an eco evaluation, which kind of you guys just went through a little bit. It's really just open-ended questions, understanding who you are, where your business is going, and identifying easy things that you can start off with to expand your evolution of sustainability for yourself as an individual, for your team, and for your business. And then we also deliver upon and manage these solutions, whether it be solar or permaculture, the sustainability coaching, or tying it all up in community resilience, as we call it, where we do as much as possible for a house of worship, for a larger commercial building in DC. We have actually kind of a soon-to-be case study, I hope, as time goes on, where we have a customer that's working with us where she wants to put solar on her personal home. She wants to do it on some farmland in Virginia. And finally, but not least, wants to put solar on a commercial building in DC that she's buying. Right. So this person's perfectly thinking, what can I leverage? Right. And she's a business owner herself that manages a lot of real estate. Right. And she figured out that solar's a great and probably the best way right now, at least in this area, to make a sustainable impact with your property. Just switch your energy over and benefit financially and otherwise, when you do that. So Marcus, any specific things you want to add on here?
Sure. I just want to mention this point, which I don't think we've quite touched on, maybe indirectly, is when you're speaking of sustainability as a business, well, what really is a business? It's a collective of individuals, and it's organizing individuals in such a way to maximize efficiency or maximize a common cause or goal or something that you're trying to achieve. The same can be said about sustainability. Ultimately, if all the individuals within a company are not living sustainably themselves, then the business at large is never going to be an impactful sustainability organization. So I really do think that the best place to start is within yourself, and inspire yourself to be more sustainable and to adopt some of these solutions first, and sort of be the example that others can follow, and start to learn about what it is you're passionate about, and then you can become the subject matter expert in whatever your passion is around sustainability. So that's where we focus. We do focus on individuals and helping them to awaken that sustainable consciousness, share it with others, and we have simple actions that you can take, anywhere from going solar to starting a compost or growing some food for yourself at your own home, all the way to on the other end of the spectrum, which I think is a lot less talked about, but is equally, if not more, impactful on a large scale. Where are your financial resources going? What are they contributing towards? The money that's sitting in your bank account, what is it actually doing? What is that bank doing with your money? What your investments, what are you invested in? Your investments are a reflection of it should be a reflection of your values, about the world you want to bring about. And I think the more people that start to invest in these values that we all collectively share, the more money's going to funnel into sustainable initiatives and sustainable causes. And these businesses that are doing great work are going to be the ones that actually have the best return on your investment. And that's starting to, ESG investing is starting to become a big thing. I still think we're in the infancy of that. So we actually help individuals and businesses to identify banks that are more in line with their values, and investments in companies and mutual funds that are more in line with what they care about and their passions. And the more people that do align themselves financially with investments that are going to bring about a sustainable future, the better off we're all going to be. And just looking at this slide, just to touch on a few different examples. So I'll start left to right. So the first one on the far left is actually in Tacoma Park, Maryland, but it happens to be on the DC feeder lines. I won't get too much into it, but essentially DC does have a grid that extends a little bit into certain parts of Maryland, just over the border. So long story short, this building and this house is able to take advantage of the DC incentives rather than the Maryland incentives, which are much more substantial. But this is actually a developer who I've built a relationship in working with him on some other projects. And so he brought me in to help him create this home in a way where he could get LEED platinum certification. And he wanted to go solar. And the guy that was ultimately buying the house was the one driving this. He wanted a really sustainable home. He wanted renewable energy. He wanted energy efficiency. He wanted really good insulation, windows that are energy efficient. He really wants an ecological landscaping around that is, reflective on the outside of his own values of trying to lead a more sustainable lifestyle. So we actually help through consulting services get geothermal heating and cooling for the home, to install the solar panels on the house, to advise on some other factors, more sustainable materials for different components. And we're actually in the process of working with a partner of ours to design the entire landscaping in a more sustainable, ecological way, with more local plants that are going to help revitalize the soil and naturally sequester carbon back into the soil. And so it's pretty cool. We're working with a developer on this. This will be a good case study, and he can build more sustainable homes, after this, as this, having this served as a model. The second one over is actually sort of just a testament to the service that we're providing, and the fact that, solar has been beneficial for folks. I had two separate customers, one's in DC, the other's in Virginia, that both happen to be on the board of directors at this church. It's the New York Ave Presbyterian Church in downtown Washington, D.C., just off of New York Ave. And so we actually installed solar. They had a smaller existing system up there, but we added to that existing system to maximize the solar that they could fit up on the church. So we do work with churches and schools and different community organizations to help them go solar. The third one is just a home business. It's for homes, and really it doesn't have to be a business. It can just be your home. It's really easy to go solar, especially in DC and in many markets. You know, we focus on Virginia and Maryland as well, but DC is really the best, lowest hanging fruit in terms of it's a no-brainer financially. And it can be in Virginia and Maryland if you think of it from the right perspective, and the home is very good for it. You have a southish facing roof with very little shade, but in DC, really, if you have a roof that gets any decent level of solar exposure, it absolutely makes sense to go solar. And we'd love, any of you guys are interested in pursuing it or know somebody who is, we'd love to, you know, continue that conversation after this. We, you know, ideally set up a meeting with everybody on this call to talk about your business and help you think about sustainability and organize it. And you know, everything in sustainability is so nuanced, and there's so many different circumstances and situations where the right answer really involves diving into the details and looking at all the different moving parts and factors to truly advise. So that's why we take this hands-on consultative approach for each individual business owner or individual person in their own life. And then the fourth project is actually one of the most exciting ones just because of the story that's attached to it. And the first half of this story got national media attention. It's in like NPR and a couple other, like, you know, CNBC, and there's some articles written about this. But this is in Tacoma Park, Maryland, also on the DC feeder line, so the DC solar incentive. The community itself actually, and because I was the one who actually managed this project and sold it to the owners over there. This is RS Auto. It used to be a gas station right in downtown Tacoma Park, Maryland. But the owners kept getting feedback from the community that the community in Tacoma Park, Maryland, very environmentally friendly, eco-friendly, and is trying to, you know, lead from the front. And they got a lot of feedback that, frankly, they didn't love having a gas station in the heart of Tacoma Park, Maryland. And the owners took that to heart. And after enough feedback from the community, they decided to incur a $100,000 cost on their own to remove the gas tanks entirely and install high voltage EV charging stations, so fast chargers for EV cars. So there's no longer a gas station there. And then we actually came in after the EV chargers were done, and we installed solar on this canopy that you can see. And then there's an auto body shop as well that's would be in the foreground of this picture, or behind where it was taken, and we installed solar on that as well. So we helped them, you know, continue along that sustainable path by not just converting to electric, but then having that electric be supplied by renewable electricity, because ultimately, you know, the electrification of the transportation sector, it's only part of the battle. It doesn't achieve everything by itself. You do need to transition as much to renewables as possible and power these electric different components, whether it's a car, or even, you know, switching heating in your home to electric. It really is only impactful environmentally speaking if it's you know, being powered by renewable electricity as well. So these are just a couple examples of some projects that we've worked on.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. And as we wrap up here, guys, the last couple slides here. So Marcus mentioned how our focus historically has absolutely been with individuals and will always be, even with us launching a new division, which at this point we're calling Sustainable Youth Enterprise, where we specifically focus on working with small businesses like the businesses you guys own and manage and lead. So for us, you know, it's really just about similarly evolving your business's sustainability through that community collaboration. and making it accessible, practical, and actionable, right? As we have this platform that's online, virtual, and in person, where we host all these things you see on the right there, and really curate something here where we can all collaborate, have more of these conversations, and meet with companies like us and other experts that can really dive in on specific, targetable things around certain initiatives that are valuable. So John is John Schwartz, who should still be on here. If you want to say just a few words about how you're going to be heading up this division here.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead. Thank you, Kay, for introducing me. I recently put together this idea that we could put together a platform that brings together business professionals and business owners, and brought the idea to Kay. He really liked it, and wanted me to head on that project, almost acting like it's my baby. And it's really something that's important to me, because I realize that there's a need in the industry for business owners and professionals to connect. And I really wanted to bridge that gap. And I realized one of the only ways we could do this, especially globally, is to put together an online platform. And so we realized that we needed to add value to bring people together. So that's why we want to offer webinars, podcasts, courses, and all these things on the right. So in order to do that, we need professionals like you to come on to the platform, add content. We will be able to, whether you want to do a webinar about something that you are taking on with sustainability, and what your business is doing to be sustainable, you can do a webinar about that. Or you could even go into something more coursework and let your voice be heard through this platform. And we're hoping that it will gain some traction, and we believe that there's a lot that can come from this, and a lot of people can be helped from it. I like the idea that there's discussion boards so people can collaborate, network together. So, for example, there's big companies out there, like Sustainalytics, and we're really hoping that we can get analysts and ESG professionals on board on this, so that we can connect small businesses with big corporations and professionals that work for them, in order to bridge that gap, so that it's not so expensive and that people aren't paying thousands of dollars, like small businesses aren't paying thousands of dollars for consulting firms. That just isn't economical for a small to medium-sized business. So that's why we want to offer a low-cost alternative like Sustainable You Enterprise. So yeah, that's all I got. And again, thank you for including me, Kay and Marcus. And I'm hoping that this is in development, and I'm hoping that we can develop some traction on this. So thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. So, and to wrap this up, guys, I know we're a minute over time, but this is a quick slide. This is our contact info again. So we'd love for you to join us. I think we also put in the chat, but Marcus and myself, feel free to email us or call us directly. Those are our personal phone numbers. These slides, I'm not sure, maybe Charles, we could send these slides if anybody wants it afterwards, but they are awesome. They are hyperlinked with the Evolve and resources. Resources actually leads to a link tree that includes content about our past every day of April. This past Earth Month, we had content come out of our partners and resources, and it led up to a large roundtable event with similarly about 20, 30 people or so, all sustainable businesses talking about the things we're talking about. And we talked about earlier our podcast about Drawdown. We also have a Medium article, just one right now, about the story of plastic and really a behavior change that we need. And also coincidentally today, we're going to be posting on a newsletter. We typically do it on the 22nd. And so that's monthly. Feel free to click on the resources links once you get the slider. Actually, I'm going to post it in the Slack, our website, and click on join us. And then you'll absolutely be able to, kind of be part of our communications. And of course, in that Evolve category, feel free to reach out to us to schedule an actual, eco evaluation for yourself individually or for your business, right? As we kind of put you on the waiting list, so to speak, for SY Enterprise. I don't know how much time we have. We are over time, but if anybody has any questions or things like that, feel free to reach out to us directly. And of course, put your information, your business in the chat, so we have that recorded as well for everybody afterwards. So thank you so much, everybody. It's been such an honor and a privilege to be here, and I can't wait to see what the future conversations look like.
Marcus, Kay, and John, thank you so much. Great presentation. I know I learned so much from, even though we've talked about this in advance and I talk to you guys every couple of weeks, I learned so much from today's presentation. Great information. And we'll make sure that we are recording this. It will be posted on our DCSBDC YouTube channel. And we're going to be publishing that soon. So I will get that link out to everybody. Also, for everybody who's on the presentation today, we'll make sure that you also get a copy of the slide deck. So that will happen. So definitely, appreciate everybody who attended today. And guys, we definitely will have to do this again. Definitely.
For sure. Thanks, Charles. And thanks everybody for your time. This was awesome.